Awesome. So welcome to our Guide the Way to Product Love. This is more workshop-y than your other typical sessions. So it's just FYI, it's going to be more hands-on, some group work. But really the point of that is to give you all a really deep dive into our guides, our best practices, and for you to be able to apply that here and kind of start getting those creative juices flowing so you can take it back home into your product. Who we are. So funny pictures up here. Pendo does avatars for all the employees. So this is me, Fanny Laufters. I'm one of the customer success managers, and I take care of some of the West Coast and Midwest customers.
I'm Brian. I'm not a tree. I'm actually an ent, if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings. I'm a customer success manager with our Midwest, Mountain, and Northwest customers.
Awesome. So let's just go down the agenda quickly. We'll start with a drawing exercise, get you guys in the mindset of more of the creative type aspect and drawing using markers. I hadn't used a marker in a really long time, so this might be your first time in a while as well. We'll then go into a quick intro on what Pendo guides are, the in-app messaging that we provide in the Pendo tool. We'll touch on building successful guides, so those best practices and tips on the various guide types that we offer. We'll do a couple of group exercises, one on a particular guide. We'll give you guys product scenarios, and you guys will build your guide on a sheet of paper, big easels. Then we'll walk into walkthroughs. If you guys are familiar with Pendo, walkthroughs are very pivotal in the application, and we'll go into really advanced practices in that, and then do a final walkthrough challenge at the end.
Thanks. So for folks that have paper, markers, pen, we're going to put 60 seconds on the clock, and we just want you to draw a house. Add as much detail as you'd like. Put out into the world your idea of what a house should look like. All right. Time's up, folks. Let's take a pause real quick here, and let's start looking around. So how many folks, raise your hands. Yeah, you can raise your houses up if you want. Show them to your neighbor. How many folks put the door in the center of the house? Raise your hands. Dang, a lot of center-aligned folks. I love it. How many windows your house have? 2 windows. 4 windows? Anybody? Awesome. 2-story houses? So those are the 4-window people? All right. Cool. Any shrubs or trees? Any greenery out there? I like it. Perfect. People, cars, pets, any other animals? Awesome. Hey, you guys are fantastic. I love that too. What we just wanted to put out here, especially if you're new to using guides or you really want to start using guides more, is that you are creating an experience for your users. And oftentimes you may not be on the web development team, if you're on product management, or maybe you're coming into Pendo from a customer success perspective. You're creating an experience for your users. So don't be jaded by that. Just remember that you are representing your company. You want to be on brand, and try to make sure that what you're trying to communicate is clear and concise and really brings across the right message for what you want your users to see inside of your guides. Where are we at?
So for those of you that are familiar with Pendo, you know that guides are what we call all of our in-app messaging, right? Those pop-ups, as you all might be familiar with, tooltips, that is what Pendo guides are. So Pendo does kind of come threefold here. We've got the robust product analytics. You all have heard that probably in various sessions, right? Getting to know how to track your users, what pages and features they're using, as well as the guides. And those work with personalized guidance, you all being able to tell your users how to behave in the tool, tell them what to use, where to go, especially when you guys launch new UIs, new features in the application. And just as important is also using those guides for the opposite, right? Getting that highly relevant feedback and being able to ask them how their experience is, and that's important in any role that you play. So these are the guides that we have in application. So I'll quickly run through and you can read a little bit of the description. We have a banner, that's the typical at the bottom or at the top of the navigation, that long skinny strip that provides typically an announcement or some sort of survey. We have a light box. That's what you would most likely consider that pop-up, right? It's in the center of the page. It comes up as soon as you log into a particular page of the application. Tooltip is what's going to be anchored to an element. So most of the time, it's that smart tip, those frequently asked questions you want to get rid of. you add here a tooltip in your application. And then a combination of all those guides is what then we call a walkthrough.
So we want to start with Lightbox because it is very attention grabbing. It's great for announcing new features, outage notices. You have an upcoming product conference you want folks to pay attention to. It's centered in the middle of the page. It grays out. We have a frosted background. You can actually apply this frosted background to banners and tooltips if you really want to get people's attention. It's a new feature we added recently. But there's a lot of things you can do here. You can compel engagement if someone needs to respond to something that you put in a Lightbox, like a survey, questionnaire. You can remove the X button. You can only make the submit button the only thing that will allow them to get back in your eye. It's a little bit more aggressive, but just a heads up, it's something you can do there. And in terms of Lightboxes, it's a great format to use graphics. It's a larger box than a larger guide than our other guides. We really suggest adding a graphic, especially if you're trying to encourage engagement for maybe a new feature, you have a new UI rolling out there. Maybe take a screenshot of what that should look like when they've completed that action. Again, your users may not know that you've been developing this feature. They may not have read your emails announcing this new feature. So the Lightbox may be the first time that they see it when they log in. Oftentimes, we really recommend giving a call to action for if they engage with the guide. So not just a what is happening, but why, right? Like if they use this shopping list feature, for example, what can they get out of it? If they start using this new thing that you built for them inside of your application, did you build it for folks that complained about, hey, there were too many steps prior to this, or it was unclear where we should go in that situation? So let them know kind of what your impetus was building that guide.
Some more of the advanced best practice tips that we also have is provide more than one activation method. So a lot of the times your users are going to be super used to clicking the X right at the top of your Pendo guide or whatever other pop-ups you have. Have it then appear somewhere else, maybe in multiple pages, maybe in every page that they log into. We also have something called the Guide Center, if you guys are familiar with that, right? It pops up and they can go back and access that Lightbox. So giving your users the ability to see it as soon as they log in or at will, I think will solve for that reflexive guide dismissal. And then another one is including links in your buttons to continue engagement. So in this particular Pendo guide, this is actually a guide that we use. We use this guide if you've got your renewal coming up and we've emailed you 1,000,000 times and you've never emailed us back and we're like, we know you're logging in. So we're gonna put up this guide and give you some stats. The buttons that we give is no thanks or let's discuss. And that let's discuss button actually goes straight to our Calendly link as CSMs so they can actually go ahead and book a meeting with us. So one big tip is if you really want your users to engage, if this is a call to action Lightbox, have them a way where they click a button and they can actually have an action, right? They can book a meeting with you straight from that. Here's some other screenshots that we have. These are examples from some of our customers. So you can get as silly, cheeky, or as serious as you want. Obviously, you all know your audience. You work with your marketing team to best display the voice and be on brand. So we've got that middle one, a cute little, they use a whale at Engagio as their logo, and it's snowman. So that's cute. You've got something a little bit more serious here. This is from our customer direct supply. So it provides a screenshot, or some include an entire video as well, right? Making it for a way that you're keeping them inside the application so they can do what you're telling them to do, that desired action, is really important.
All right, so what we wanted to do, we didn't pass out the sheets yet, but we're going to give some different scenarios, and we want you all to create some light boxes based on the different scenarios here. So I think the best way is to kind of break out into four corners, you said.
That's best for a workshop, but you've got 4 tables. So if you all can kind of gather around the end of each of the tables, we're going to pass out these big boards, and then we're going to pass out a product scenario and have you guys create your own light box.
Yeah.
All right, time's up, everyone. So I hope with that you got some collaborative group work going on. Your artistic abilities are showing. We're not going to present these just yet. We're going to do final presentations at the end. But we're going to continue and talk through here the rest of those particular guides that you're using inside. So You've hopefully got to brainstorm and get to draw some really awesome light boxes. Another one of these guides inside of Pendo that I discuss are those tooltips. So this is really for quickly offering the help at those points of confusion. Think, and this is what I tell my customers when I'm onboarding them, what are those questions that your support team is getting all the time? Those user error questions, those that actually they need to click this button instead of this one, or actually this is what this button means. That is what tooltips are really helpful for. Quick insight, and these are some of the Pendo tooltips that we have. We used to get a lot of tickets on what do dates mean? What does last 7 days of data in Pendo mean? What does last 30 days? We put this tooltip right here, and that solved all those support tickets. We don't get support tickets about that anymore because we have this super quick and easy tooltip, right? So those FAQs. A pro tip here is to hide that tooltip. So you don't want it to just pop up, right? Some of the customers may not have a question. They get it. They understand what that particular feature is. But a way to hide is to, like you see in this tooltip, you see that little eye, that info icon, that's a badge. So you can actually adhere your tooltips to a badge so it is elective engagement. If they have a question, oh, they're like, there's a badge, there must be some information. They hover or click on it, and then they're able to get that question answered. Some of the best practices here, this is going to be the smallest type of guide. So here, more than in any other guide, clear and concise text. If you have several steps for them, that's maybe when you might need more than one tooltip. You want to make sure there's one action per tooltip, right? You don't need to have all these different things telling them in this little box. And then one of the other best practice tips is provide those links to help articles. We do that all the time in our Pendo guides. If you see here, filter by group, that here button is a link. We have a knowledge-based article on that. Sometimes all that information you want to relay is not going to fit on a tooltip, but you want that to be available for your customers.
The third type of guide that we have is a banner. So it's a long, thin guide across the top or bottom of the page. It's nice because it's unobtrusive. It's not going to block your UI. That's why we give you the option to put it at the top or the bottom. Usually at the bottom, you might not have a navigation bar. Yeah, question. Yeah, sure.
So you're saying don't put more than one, but do you have an example, or what does it look like if you do need more than one?
Yeah, so any combination of a lightbox, tooltip, or a banner, we call a walkthrough. So it's just a multi-step guide progression. So oftentimes, like for a new feature announcement, for example, you might do a lightbox to announce a new feature. The next tooltip would show you where to initiate the feature, and if there's like a second or third step, you kind of highlight on the page that those new features are to show what the action is. So you can kind of say, sometimes in the first examples of Lightbox, we had show me more was oftentimes the bottom. We recommend putting a Lightbox at the beginning of a walkthrough, any of those multi-step guides, so that folks know they're about to like engage in a journey and not just, have to dismiss one more guide, say, hey, show me more, that type of thing. Yeah. Yeah, so we do that in our guide center. If you guys are familiar with the onboarding guides that we have for how to tag a feature, how to tag a page, we actually go right into tooltips just because a lot of the things in the Pendo UI you can navigate to from any page. All of the left side nav bar are available from any place in the analytics environment in Pendo. So we don't do a lightbox right from our guide center. We go immediately into tooltips, and we get pretty good results from that for engagement. We really like using the banner at the bottom for our NPS surveys. Oftentimes, if you've responded to an NPS survey inside of Pendo, if you're an existing customer, it comes up in this way. And you can make it persistent. You can make it available on every page, available until people dismiss it, and that way you're maybe more likely to get a higher response rate, that type of thing. And the last way, easy way to give feedback. So number scale, good experience, bad experience, you can make it as easy or simple as you want. We also see a lot of banner usage for upcoming maintenance or outage notifications. And again, keeping text to an absolute minimum is really helpful. If you have a longer article explaining maybe what's happening or why you're doing it, provide the link in there, and folks can kind of go and read that at their own leisure and not try to cram a lot of text in a small area. Think about the surveys you're pushing on relevant pages. If you're asking folks, hey, how did you like this new UI? It may seem kind of obvious, but make sure that survey is tagged to that specific page so that when people land on your splash page, they're not saying, oh, I haven't seen this new feature. What are you talking about? And then for NPS, it's recommended to show on all pages here. one advantage of using the Pendo MPS, by the way, just a quick plug, and it's probably the most valuable feature that we have inside of Pendo, is that the analytics for Net Promoter Score show you a lot of insight for customer usage, much more than any other Pendo survey will. And the reason is that it's an industry standard. A lot of folks are adopting it, SaaS and tech companies, to say, hey, this is what our NPS score is, this is what our passive rate is, our promoter rate, our detractor rate. And so inside of Pendo, we start marrying qualitative feedback with quantitative feedback. So the NPS, Net Promoter Score, is going to tell you how someone feels, and then you're also going to start seeing feature usage and other in-app analytics for page usage and other things like that. Just based on an NPS score, you say, hey, maybe more of our promoters are using this page, more of our detractors are using that page. We have a lot of help articles on that. We don't have to get into it here, but NPS via banners has been really powerful for a lot of our customers.
So more advanced best practices on the banner. Like Brian said, place it at the bottom of the screen. So if you're placing at the top and someone's trying to log in, typically at the top of your screen is where your navigation is, right? You're then deterring them from logging in and doing what they go into your application to do. So they're going to dismiss it, they're going to click X, and they want to get rid of it. Or they're going to quickly give you a score, may not be the most precise score that they actually feel. So we definitely recommend placing those more passive banners at the bottom of the navigation. Announcing non-major events. So things like join our Slack community, right? You don't want to do a big light box for that. That's not necessary. That's something very secondary to your application. But you might want to be able to plug it in some way. So I think a banner is a good way. And then target based off location, account type, and other metadata. So one big thing here that we plug into Pendo is when you are polling your users, when you're using that to get customer feedback, if you're saying, oh, how did you like this one feature? Make sure that you're targeting the people that have used it and not just used it once or twice. That might not be enough to give you some good relevant feedback. Make sure, and you can do this with Pendo, that you target the people that have used it maybe 10 times. Maybe that to you is enough. Or they've been using it at least X number of clicks, X number of days. So very much recommend that you guys use the metadata that you're bringing into Pendo to actually promote those guides. And then moving into walkthroughs. So this is more of all of these guide types created together. So a walkthrough is you have individual steps, kind of like the journey that we talked about, and you will add all these different types of guides to be able to walk your user through any goals you want them to achieve. Some of the characteristics here are, here like you see, we've got Sean from Engagio, one of our customers again, was able to provide us some screenshots for some of this guide. So as you see here, right, step by step. You have back, next button, so if the people get lost in a journey, they can easily go back and look at that step. You also have the ability with Pendo to see how long they stayed on that step. Maybe one part of that journey you didn't think would be that difficult. People are spending 10, 15, 20 seconds in. The rest of them, they're flying by, and they're like, yep, 1, 2 seconds on the rest of the guide. So I think walkthroughs are really important for you to be able to see, in this prescribed journey that I'm taking my user to, where are the parts that they're taking a lot longer? Where are the parts they're spending more time in? This is the use cases here for onboarding, again, introducing completely new UI, anything that you're wanting to say, step by step, here's how you achieve this.
Some best practices with walkthroughs. The biggest drop-off occurs after the first step. And so that's where some of the things we mentioned earlier, thinking about who the guide is targeted to, what page the guide is targeted on, when a user will see that guide, all of those things are going to encourage a high completion rate of the walkthrough, especially going from the first step to the second. Oftentimes what happens is user says, oh, I've never seen this feature, this is not relevant to me at all, and clicks X and dismisses the guide. If you only have one guide activation method up, which is the automatic one, they will not see that guide again. Like we mentioned earlier, there's a couple different ways to launch guides, so you can make them persistent on a page with a badge. You can tag them to the guide center so that folks can access them if they need. But again, if the guide is not targeted to the right segment, who, what, and even when, you can choose guide ordering and throttling, right? So if we're doing onboarding walkthroughs, new user walkthroughs, there's settings in the guide details pages where you can say this guide should appear before this one, especially if you have a more advanced feature they've never been exposed to yet. Those kind of logical things you can make sure you don't have any missteps on. Segmentation, yeah, that's what I just talked about here. Content description, make sure that it's something that they want to see. If you log in to Pendo for the first time, you may have been a customer of ours for a while and not seen what our new user onboarding walkthrough looks like. We have that experience available for everyone as bottom part of our guide center. I think it says like ideation or new ideas, but basically it's what we say, hey, when you're introduced to Pendo, this is what we want you to see for the first time. So you can do something similar in the guide center for your users as well. And short and sweet, no steps. I think we have another graphic on this. Right, so we did a study last year about walkthrough completion rates, and folks come to us and they say, hey, let's look at our walkthrough together. You know, what would be a good response rate? It really depends on your user base, right? Do you have folks logging on a daily basis? Are you a payment system where folks only need to log in once a month and spending less time on your site is better because you have a fluid UI? It really changes company by company. You all should know your customers the best. But after 6 steps, when we're getting below a 20% completion rate, typically that's where we recommend, like, you know, you may need to be targeting your guide more, you may need to shorten your steps. I think our record walkthrough length was like 37 steps or something like that. Yeah, you all hear that and you're like, I wouldn't want to do that. Most folks don't either. So very few people are going through, you know, 36 out of those 37 steps. So 4 to 6 is kind of the sweet spot. I mean, if you can do what you need to do and say what you need to say in one guide, that might be the best way to do it. Again, like we said earlier, those light boxes, you can take a screen capture, kind of highlight arrows for where folks need to go, number it out, and that could just be one quick light box graphic instead of, you know, 6 steps of a walkthrough to show how to, with tooltips, what to do inside of your app.
Two questions. So from a segmentation perspective, obviously segmentation falls into personalization, and I'm curious, like if you have insights. So for example, if you're trying to solve a trial problem,
Yeah.
it's possible that every single one of the trial forms has some insight as to how somebody got there, how quickly from the point of trial submission, getting from like a Marketo or to Salesforce, for example, right? How quickly is the Pendo segmentation getting updated once that hits Salesforce?
With Salesforce, I think we do a nightly sync of data. Is that right? So if you're passing information from Marketo into Salesforce and then as a metadata field from Salesforce into Pendo, every day Salesforce will update the metadata fields inside of Pendo. So we do a once daily sync with Salesforce, but everything other than that, we typically batch metadata on the hour, at the top of the hour in the first like 10 to 15 minutes. So you get 24 a day basically. So it shouldn't be, usually folks say, hey, you know, I'm not seeing this user. They just emailed me and said they submitted something. We're not seeing it right away. Usually I'll just say, hey, if it's not there in 90 minutes, maybe we're tracking it wrong. We tagged it incorrectly. We need to rename it so you can find it easier, that type of thing.
So you essentially in the first 24 hours you want to have you want to compete with a pretty broad brush and personalize.
And oftentimes what we do internally is, you know, we have all sorts of Salesforce object fields to let us know is this a trial user? We call them freemium customers within Pendo, and those are the types of things where we pass that into Pendo. But you can also see product data associated with that, right? Like, okay, they're a free trial user. They signed up on this day. Maybe you're tracking that in Salesforce as well. But then you can also see via Pendo what their first login date was and things like that, right? So we're tracking inside of the application. So we start tracking user activity once they've logged in. But you know, you may be able to kind of look back and, you know, do the difference of, you know, they signed up here but didn't log in for a certain amount of time. And we've done some internal studies with our data science team as well for our happiest customers are most likely to renew, most likely to use a full platform or product. And what we found, I think it was like 3 logins in the first 90 days meant like customers were so many more times higher to actually renew. So that's where a lot of our one-to-many strategy has been. It's, hey, you're a customer, you've been in once, let's get you in again like 2 more times in the next 2 months, and you guys are going to start seeing the value. Yeah. Question?
Okay, so you said that light boxes can cover multiple steps and screenshots.
Yeah.
To fix up that 5-step ideal. What are some other things you can do if we have a huge set of steps we need to get through?
How many steps do you have to get through?
I don't know.
Okay. So you can, we mentioned, you know, you can combine, so if you're like going through page progressions, you know, maybe you do one tooltip per page, or you do a light box for each page. You don't have to do a light box and then a tooltip. You could do 5 light boxes in a row if you want, and each light box could be tagged to each page and show kind of the progression of what should be done. A lot of our customers that have maybe like more analytics focused feature sets and those types of things that have like a lot of fields to enter. I mean, give your users credit too. They may know like, oh, if this is blank, it should be filled in, or you could kind of give them a tip like that to kind of keep them going. Yeah.
My second question.
Yeah.
So going back to that idea of prioritizing guides, right? So when I think about, we're new to Pendo, so this is all discovery for me, but like looking at like the marketing automation tool, right? Like when you're building
Absolutely, yeah. So there's end rules where you can stack and say a user must fall into this segment if they meet this criteria and this criteria. So let's say they work for Acme Corp and they're an admin, and that their login day was in the last 90 days. You can just add rules all day and make a very exclusive segment. Or you can do an or rule, which is actually inclusive, and where you can say they work for Acme Corp or Walmart. And so now you have two sets of users that are logging in, right? And you can say they're admin or they're a base user, that type of thing. Oh yeah.
All right, so for that final challenge, we had that slide up earlier, but you are going to use the same product scenario that you had. We're giving you a new sheet, but this time, instead of trying to fit everything in a light box, could you fit everything in a walkthrough? You could do 1 step, 2 step, hopefully not more than 5 or 6 steps, but get creative there, and we're going to give you a couple more screenshots of what the UI of that particular application looks like so you guys can explore more of what that walkthrough would look like. All right, everyone. So hopefully by now you all have completed your masterpieces. Let's wrap it up now. And I'd love for you all to go ahead and showcase them. So if you have any volunteers, maybe 1 or 2 people from each group, come up, put it up on the easel, and walk us through your walkthrough, what your product scenario was, and how you all strategized for that walkthrough. Oh, all right. Awesome.
So for our first exercise, our goal was to create a guide to encourage users to share their most listened to playlists on social media. We were Spotify. So we actually came up with 2 ideas because we understood the task differently. So the first one was encouraging users to use not only once, but several times. So we wanted to just showcase how to do it. So a video or a GIF animation. It's like, this is how you do it. You just click here, really simple. And then just go do it, basically closing the pop-up and going back to the UI. And the second one was a more like a one-time only. I only want to share this once. And so it shows like a little cute image of this like friends sharing their headphones like you did in high school. It's like, oh, you like this playlist a lot. Why don't you share it? And say, yeah, sure, share it. Oh, no, thank you. So that's like our 2 ideas for the first exercise. I don't know if I should go to the second one. For the second one, we're still Spotify. And we thought that Spotify was doing already a really good job showcasing the features. But so that's why we only have 2 steps on our walkthrough. The first one was basically just pointing at the button where you will go and connect with friends. That was the goal, connecting with friends. So it will show a little image of what to expect, basically the last step, how it will look like once you connected, and a little blurb and say, yeah, go check it out. So once you went through the steps of connecting to social media, and this example was Facebook, and I think it was 2 more steps, you will reach this place where you actually selected the friends that you want to connect with that had Spotify. And we gave an option of having a little, I think you call it like a little, what do you call it? The badge, thank you. A little badge if you needed more information, because like I said already, we thought that Spotify was doing a good job already in the UI.
Awesome, thank you.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Hopefully that was kind of different than the other sessions. You guys got to collaborate and maybe meet some of the people here that you haven't met before. Like I said, the recordings and the decks will be shared. I know that some of you are newer to Pendo, so these decks might be really useful for you. Pendo also has guide packages. So we all know bandwidth is low at a lot of these companies that we're at. And so if you guys don't have the ability to create your own guides or would want Pendo team to do it, that's also one of the offerings that we do. We have guide packages here. We can actually build guides for you guys and walkthroughs as well. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.